What is going on, everybody? It's your boy John, and welcome back to Gearbox. So today we've got a great video planned for you. A little bit different than what I typically post. You know, a lot of times we're talking about the Mk5 Supra, the F-150, maybe a little bit of aviation sprinkled in there, and so on and so forth. But this video, although it is in some way, shape, or form about the Mk5 Supra, it's kind of a comparison video. So obviously, title, thumbnail, you get the point. We're comparing basically the Mk5 Supra to its top competitors in the market. And to be honest with you guys, figuring out what the actual competitors are was kind of difficult. There's not really a car, in my opinion, there's not really a car that is a direct competitor with the Supra. You know, in my previous life, when I owned my WRX, the Evo was a clear competitor. In this case, it's not the case. So let's talk about it. To get right into it, as far as the top competitors go, from my research, your top two competitors are the M2 competition from BMW and the Porsche Cayman, which is interesting because both of these are German. There's no Japanese car in this list. Now, of course, you could make the argument that there are some, but price point, whatever, and we'll get into it. Those are going to be the top two competitors. Now, right off the bat, one of the first, I guess, metrics that we're going to talk about, or people are going to talk about as far as comparison, is 0 to 60 time. And in that category, the Mk5 Supra takes the cake at a 3.9 second 0 to 60. The M2 comes in second with a 4-second 0 to 60. And the Cayman comes in third with a 4.1. This is kind of surprising to me, to be honest with you. I thought the Porsche would be fast or quicker, I guess you could say. But nonetheless, that's the 0 to 60 times. Not that that means everything. That's like, I don't know, giving an offensive lineman and grading them solely on their 40-yard dash time. It's not necessarily the most important thing ever, but it is something to consider, and so that'll be point number one. Now, possibly a more telling specification on these cars as far as speed goes is going to be the quarter mile. With the quarter mile, the M2 competition actually takes the cake here with a 12.4 second quarter mile. The Supra is right behind the M2 with a 12.5 second quarter mile, and the Cayman is right behind that with a 12.6. So a 0.2 of a difference between the top and the low dog in this category. Now, another important spec on these types of sports cars is not just how fast they go, but how fast they can stop. Of course, you could have all the power in the world, but if you can't bring the thing to a stop, it's no good, and you're going to have a lot of bad days ahead of you. So, talking about the 60 to 0 times on these cars, the Cayman takes the cake at a 97-foot stopping distance. The Supra comes in second at 99 feet. And the M2 is wildly behind as far as these numbers are concerned at 106-foot stopping distance. Now, of course, all these specs are fine and good. Anyone can read the brochure. If you know what movie that quote is from, props to you, and it's probably what got you into these cars in the first place, but whatever. These brochure specs are fine. They are definitely a testament to the engineering that goes into each car respectively, but another thing to consider is just overall price, right? Sure, I would love to own a, Ferrari, a Lamborghini, or whatever, but that's just not in the cards right now. So we need to be talking about similar price range, similar power plants, etc., etc. So let's talk about price. My Toyota Supra came in around $50,000. Now, keep in mind, when we're talking about the Supra, we are talking about the 3.0 inline-six turbo variant, not the 4-cylinder, just to keep that in mind. But when it comes to the prices of the other vehicles, the M2 is at around 60 grand. and the Cayman is about $65,000. Now, of course, these price points are going to be a specific point in time that's not to be used as some sort of negotiation material at a dealership or anything like that. But at the end of the day, the Supra takes the cake on the pricing, being the cheapest option, and in my opinion, the best bang for your buck. Now, of course, we can talk about 0 to 60s and top speeds and quarter miles and all that stuff all day, but another very, very big component of this is how the car looks. And what we're talking about here specifically is the exterior. In my humble opinion, and yes, I am biased, I think the Supra, by a slim margin, takes the cake on the exterior. I would rank them Supra number 1, M2 number 2, and Cayman number 3. Now, that is not to say I do not like the look of the other cars. I just prefer the Supra for one reason or another. And I think that those body styles and the curves and the this and the that have their place, but the Supra just does it for me, guys. I think it is a beautiful car. Oh, speaking of beautiful cars, we got a little 350 action here. There is a cop behind me, so we're gonna be pretty chill, but that is sexy. But anyway, is the exterior look of your car everything? No, not at all. I would strongly recommend you to consider a lot of other factors outside of what the car looks like into purchasing said vehicle, but it does play a big part in it. You know, for me, I like a sharp-looking sports car. I don't want to necessarily be the center of attention for more reasons than one, but I do like having a car that turns heads and makes people feel a certain type of way, and this car does just that. I'm sure the M2 and the Cayman do the same thing as well, but the Supra, for me personally, just does it the right way. Now, another big component into the discussion on these cars is not just the speed, it's not just the looks, but also convenience. You know, I am lucky enough to have this as my kind of fun, not everyday car, and have my truck as my daily driver. So I can budge a little bit on convenience factors and comfortability and whatever, regardless of if it's a Supra or not. In this particular case, of course, I have the Supra, but the convenience factor, you know, especially if this is going to be your own vehicle, or your only vehicle rather, how convenient are they? And really ranking those out, I would give M2 at the top of the list being the most convenient, and then to be honest with you, probably the Cayman, and then Supra at the bottom. The reason the M2 is at the top is, technically speaking, the M2 does have 4 seats. So if you wanted to, for one reason or another, you could fit 4 people in there. Would my big ass want to be sitting in the back of an M2? Absolutely not. But if you were in a pinch, you could do it. The Supra, I don't know if you can tell, does not. The Cayman also does not. Both cars are 2-seaters, so you're pretty limited on what you can do with the vehicle. Now, one thing I did not do a whole lot of research into in the convenience area was like cubic footage, I guess, of trunk space and storage and whatever. I don't know. But I also don't think that's a fair thing to look into in a legit sports car, because everyone knows that it's going to be lacking in that category. But either way, I think the amount of seats in the car is enough to give M2 the dub on convenience factor. But once again, different strokes for different folks. If you're okay with the 2-seater, be okay with the 2-seater. If you want the extra seats, I don't know. Your decision. Will that being the, main deciding point in which car you choose? I would argue probably not, but it is nice to have the extra seats. I do in some ways miss the back row seating in my WRX. Not enough to go buy the damn thing back and get rid of the Supra, but it was nice while it lasted. So anyway, guys, that's really all I have to present to you. Now it's up for you to decide. Toyota Supra, M2 Competition, or the Cayman. I know where my heart's at, and I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. It's the Supra. And yes, I know that in more ways than one, I'm biased in this conversation, but I do think those other two vehicles are amazing and some great engineering behind them. But I do genuinely think, having driven all of those vehicles, that the Supra takes the cake. It's in my opinion, the perfect balance between power and just a raw sports car, comfortability, practicality as much as a sports car could be practical, but just the overall emotions I get when driving this car. I think the heritage of the Supra legend, and of course me being partial to Japanese cars, plays a factor in that. Once again, all of the cars are amazing in their own different ways, but the Supra does it for me. But I'd be curious to hear what you guys think down below. Drop some comments. I think this one's gonna stir some pots for sure. If you like this video, please give it a big fat thumbs up. Another thing, if I missed any criteria that you would consider deciding between these cars, also drop them in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And as always, guys, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell. You know the drill. And until next time, peace.